Everyone's rolling. I guess we'll start. First of all, what is the work that you do within the prison system?
I go into a number of units to help offenders see the human face of the crimes that they've committed. And by doing so, help change them, help them be redeemed and come out of prison and not go back.
Can you tell me a little bit about what brought you to work with them, what your personal story was?
In 1986, late in 1986, our daughter, Kathy, who was 26 at the time, went missing for several days. And we found out at the end of 5 days that she had been accosted on her way home from a dinner or coffee meeting with a friend and had been raped and then shot in the back of the head. This November, that will be 30 years ago. John and I were just full of emptiness and numbness and, disbelief. You simply cannot believe that what you've seen in the TV, on the TV and in the newspaper has actually come and landed right in your lap. You just can't believe that. And then we went straight from there into total devastation. We were never angry. I went to a victims group for a while, and they were enormously helpful to me in the beginning. I felt like I had this bond with people who'd experienced what we had experienced. And so that part was really good. And, they were there. We were kindred spirits. But as I continued to go over the next year, I felt a growing chasm between me and the people there. That I was reading a lot about grief and loss and working toward healing and being able to go forward. And I would hear, my life is ruined from people. My life is over. My life is ruined. And lots of anger. And as I say many, many times, I feel like people have to walk their own journey. But I just knew it wasn't going to be helpful for me going forward. So I quit going. And I began to feel like, strange as it may sound, everything that we were doing and much of what the criminal justice system does is violent. We answer violence with more violence. Quite by happenstance, I guess, serendipity, I went to a presbytery meeting. On one of the tables was a booklet. Its title was Restorative Justice, and the subtitle, Toward Nonviolence. What it said is restorative justice seeks to address harm that's been done without creating further harm. The restorative justice made a lot of difference in my life. One of the books that I read led me into teaching in prison.
When did you first hear about the Paul Broussard case?
I think I heard about the Paul Broussard case when I was going to that victims group that I mentioned I went to, and met Paul's mother. I started teaching in prison in January of 97. So it would have either been the fall of 97 or the spring of 98. I was teaching a death and dying class at the WIN unit. When I called roll that first night, I pronounced John's name correctly. And he knew, because his name is a strange name to look at and know that it's pronounced Bice. He knew that I knew who he was. After the class, he said, "You know who I am?" And I said, "Yes, I know Nancy." And he said, "Do I need to drop this class?" And I said, "No, not at all. Not at all. I give everybody a fair shake. You show me respect, I show it back to you. I'm not here to judge you." And I wasn't. I just happened to know, unfortunately, who John was. I never asked my students why they were in prison. I'm interested first and foremost, as a mother of a murder victim, of preventing more crimes and more victims. That's my primary purpose. And I try to tell people when I talk to people, you don't have to care about them, those men and women in prison. You don't have to. I do. But you don't have to. All you have to care about is your own neighborhood, because 90-something% of them are coming back out of prison. And what we do to them in prison makes all the difference in the world. But I found teaching in prison to be the one best thing I ever did for my own healing, because I saw the reality of prison. I mean, it's often pretty sad. Pretty sad.
You met with the person who inflicted the crime upon your daughter. What is that like? How do you prepare yourself for something like that, and what do you expect to come out of it?
Once I asked, I wasn't even sure why I wanted to do it. But we had a year of preparation, lots and lots of reflective work. And I started thinking about those two young men, but specifically Gary, because he was the one with which we would be meeting. I started thinking about him as a human being, and I had pretty much pushed them away. Texas took care of them was my way of looking at it, and I didn't really think about them very much. I had a really wonderful, productive life, and have continued to have that, except that I found I'll never fill up that hole. Why I thought I could, I don't know, but I realized at one point I was trying to fill the hole. And there's still a little Kathy-shaped hole there that I'll never fill. But I wanted to meet with him and Amy, my daughter, who was first and foremost Kathy's daughter, and we adopted her. We raised her, and we adopted her when she was 11. And she wanted to do it too, so we worked together. Once I got there, I did realize why I wanted to do it. It was a gut check for me. Was I who I thought I was? I was, at that time, about 3.5 years teaching in prison. And I had a lot of compassion for offenders and the enormous guilt and shame that they carried with them. But could I have that for Gary? Because he was not simply an offender. And when he walked in, he'd obviously been crying and was scared to death. That just took all my doubt away. I could have the same compassion for him. And by this time of a year of preparation, I knew so much more about who he was and his story and the train wreck that had been his life up till the time he was 15 and killed my daughter. And Gary, I'm not sure will ever forgive himself. And forgiveness doesn't have to be earned or deserved. You know, forgiveness is a gift we give or a gift we get. But I have to say, living with the forgiveness and the lack of bitterness allows me to live. The other is just too great a burden to bear.